Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
Hey, this is Bjorn Leesson. I'm the author of the Outside the Valspar series, and the first book being Runes of the Dokkrsdottir. And I have a little snippet here I'd like to read. This is from pages 92 to 97. This takes place with our protagonist, who is just in the midst of a battle in ancient Scandinavia during the Viking Age. She just came across a traumatic scene. I don't want to say what it is to give it away, but I will read from here on and gives a good little idea of what the story's about. She doesn't even try to resist it. The darkness washes over her and takes control. She releases a screechy growl and bursts out in the building in a cloud of dust and wood shards as though a bolt of lightning has struck the building. As she does, several Baltic soldiers and civilians run by and see her smoking black eyes and jagged fangs. Terrified screams and yells permeate the air as they scatter in mortal fear. The intensity of the takeover is overwhelming. There is no thinking at all, only rampant, unrelenting violence. She doesn't know soldier from civilian or a child from adult. She kills them all indiscriminately. Dozens of lives are taken in her immeasurable rage, several of them pleading for their lives as she tears them apart. In the opposite back corner of the village, the last resistance of the Baltic villagers collapses. The Dokkrsdottir raid concludes in victory. The victorious warriors hear a commotion coming from another corner of the village and run that way to see what is going on. When they arrive, the scene is shocking. Dead Baltic soldiers and civilians, dozens of them torn apart and scattered all around a single figure, one of their own warriors. She is kneeling down, sobbing uncontrollably, and is awash in blood. None of them have ever witnessed carnage like this. By the gods, one of the warriors gasps in disbelief. A second later, Mariel collapses forward in a pool of her victim's blood. New chapter, returning home. Mariel awakens to the sensation of rocking. She opens her eyes to the sight of open, overcast sky, the sun breaking through slightly and shining down. She hears water sloshing and sees a sail engorged with wind above her. A heavy fog clouds her mind, and she doesn't know where she is or what is happening, except for the memory of her father laying dead in the Baltic building. She turns her head slightly to the right to see Grom's looking down upon her. He has a gashed forehead and bloody bandage wrapped around his right forearm. "There is my little Viking," he says with a slight smile. He helps her sit up and leans against the mast. She crunches as she moves, the dried blood covering her clothes and caked in her hair, cracks and flakes off, floating away with the stiff breeze. "My father is dead," she says weakly as tears begin streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, and I am sorry, Dokkrsdottir," he says slightly. "Whatever else he might have been, he was a good man." "Who else?" she asks with trepidation as she sniffles. "All of our ship, most of the others. 21 of us left, counting us," he answers solemnly. She remembers seeing Nan lying dead, Ulf, her father, and the flaming palisade doors, but not much else. She rubs the painful knot on the back of her head. She sees quick flashes of her darkness, the unrelenting violence she unleashed upon the Baltic soldiers and villagers. The tears begin to stream down her face more rapidly as she begins silently sobbing with slight whimpers. "Quite the life of a Viking," he says with sympathy. "Make new acquaintances in faraway lands, grow fond of them, and then they die." Her thoughts turn to her father as she remembers the scene of treachery, but she is still too exhausted to become angry, just overcome with grief and fatigue. "I knew father might be killed. I had mentally prepared myself for that possibility, but," she begins to speak of the treachery she suspects, but even in her fog, she quickly realizes she should keep it to herself for now. Grom doesn't know what she was about to say, but he is content to let her keep it a secret. Mariel recovers her emotions and wants to look around. She pushes herself up, still leaning against the mast for support. "How long have I been asleep?" she asked as she wipes her tears away and takes in the scene. She sees 3 other ships. They all appear to be thinly manned. She sees 4 people huddled together in the front of her ship, engaged in conversation. One of them looks at her with suspicious concern for a few seconds, then returns to his conversation. The others don't make any eye contact with her at all. She doesn't know what is going on or why the others in the ship seem to be shunning her except for Grom. 3 days, he answers as he hands her a skin of water, which she greedily gulps until it is empty. Grom sees a silent exchange between her and those in front of the ship, can guess what she is wondering, and beats her to the punch. He places 2 fingers on her cheek and turns her head to look at him. Apparently, there was quite the incident during the battle at the village. Dozens of dead bodies piled in the corner of that village, and only you alive amongst them. Some believe you are the sole survivor of some sort of demon attack. Others believe you are the demon, he replies with a chuckle. Care to say which, Mariel? You fought? She asked, avoiding the question. He chuckles again. Yes, told you I could hold my own when necessary, and Halfdan said it was necessary. He looks to her for a couple seconds and realizes she isn't going to answer the demon question. Do you believe in that demon? Do not believe in that demon nonsense, all a bunch of storytelling. Halfdan, she asked, still avoiding the question. Feasting with Odin now, I suspect, he answers. And the other ships, she continues her information gathering. Funeral ships for the dead, burned at the beach, he answers. Cannot get 8 ships home with 21. We'll barely get these 4 home with 21. Was it worth it? She wonders aloud, not specifically asking for an answer. Well, we won, I suppose. Heavily depends on what we call winning. Halvar has lost many of his Dairajai people. Some he will lament, and others he'll be happy to be rid of. None of that will matter too much to the good Jarl Halvar, as he is running his fingers through all the Baltic silver and gold we have, since he has taken so the shiny wealth. Grom postulates partially of Halvar once again. Mario looks at him inquisitively. Yes, quite a bit actually. It is on Baller's ship. Explains all the work to fortify, he says, guessing what she is going to ask about the raid spoils next. As they converse, the wind has died down and the sail goes limp. Rowing stations comes to order for the front of the ship. Grom groans slightly and takes his station and begins rowing, wincing as he does so due to his arm wound. Mariel also takes the station next to him and begins to row despite her exhaustion. She just wants to get home.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm so excited you guys are joining us today. I hope you guys enjoyed the reading as much as I did because I have questions. But before we start, if you're new to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. You don't want to miss a single episode. We have new authors with incredible books every week, so you want to make sure to stay tuned. So let's get started. Hello, dear. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Congratulations on this series. I have questions, so we're just going to jump in.
Okay.
What is this series about? I got the Vikings. I got the madness. I need to know more. Tell us.
Well, it starts off in ancient Scandinavia, Viking Age. It's centered around a protagonist named Mariel. She's a female warrior in the Viking Age, which that in and of itself isn't necessarily unusual if you follow Viking history. It's becoming more and more known that females were also warriors as well as the males were. But she's a little bit different. She's different in a lot of ways, actually. Her birth alone is different. She's not your stereotypical blonde hair, blue eyed, pale skinned Viking. She is half Moor and half Scandinavian. So she's tan skin with wild black hair. She has very piercing green eyes, which is unusual anywhere, really, but it just gives this whole mystique of difference about her. On top of all that, also, she's born with a power within her. It is, as it's described in a book, it's light and dark, both simultaneously and neither at the same time. She is affected by it. I'll put it that way. I don't want to give too much away, but she's affected by it, and she spends her whole life learning how to control it because it can be good, it could be bad. And the reading you just heard, she had no control over it at that point, and you can see what happens. Throughout her life, she is also guided by visions, omens, mystical beings. She has the supernatural destiny hang over her head, and it's very unclear to her. She's very impatient, very spontaneous, very impulsive, very energetic, and she's not getting an answer she wants. So it's aggravating to her, but she still has to try to function in this world under these conditions. But luckily for her, there are many, many, many allies and family members that help her along. And it's just this whole story of how she has to progress through life. And it doesn't, not to give too much away, it isn't contained to the Viking era. It moves on past that as well towards the end of the first book.
Where did this story come from? Where did you got this idea that I'm like, you know what? We're going to go straight Viking. How did this happen?
Actually, it's a combination of a bunch of my interests. I love history, always have loved history. It's my favorite thing. Due to my Scandinavian background, I like to research the Viking era, but it's not contained just to the Viking era. All ages and all cultures interest me, the history of them. So you got that. Plus, you've got, I've always been interested in the supernatural, the unknowns, the what's behind the veil that we don't know about. All that's always interested me. And then you've got just in stories and movies and all, I've always liked strong female characters. I just always liked it. And even though the story never wasn't intended to be specifically that way, it just turned out that way, but it's because of all my interests combined together.
You have a little bit of everything all mixed into this really fun, action-packed adventure, very much supernatural. Like, is she a werewolf? I want to know. Like, what is this little girl supposed to be doing? As you created the series, did you know how many books you're going to have in it? Are you done with it? Where are you at in it?
Oh, that's the fun part. When I first started, it was going to be a short story. I'm gonna be
Oh,
honest. This is the longest I've ever stuck with one story. I've always been, it's been short stories or I lose interest fast and don't ever finish them. But when I started this one, I wanted to write about this interesting female warrior from the Viking age. And it wasn't initially going to be supernatural. It was just going to be about her and her adventures in leaving Scandinavia, going to England and all. And as it built and built, I started throwing more and more in, and it became a novel. So I said, okay, I'm going to write a book then. I'm going to write me a full length novel. And then as I went, I said, this isn't enough. She's got a lot more to do. So then it became two. Then it became three. So the main core focusing around Mariel is the books one, two, and three. But I've also written four, which it's a spinoff about a supporting character named Ingrid, another strong female character, but it's also directly linked into the stories. It's not really a spinoff, but it is. If that makes any sense.
mhm.
I wrote five as well. Five is, it fills a gap in the first book that I kind of skipped forward. I said 10 years later, this happened, and then we moved on. So I filled that 10-year gap with book five. So that's out. And now I'm writing six, seven, and eight, which involve yet another character that has a very small part in the first book and is mentioned throughout the books, but she's gone at the time frame where these books are written. So I went back to pick her story up. So at this point, I don't really see an end to it. I'm gonna keep going as long as I can.
I'm enjoying the fact that you started. I was like, yeah, I'm going to write a short story, and we're looking at 10 books. And you're like, yeah, that
Yeah,
changed drastically.
it took a life of its own, and I'm glad it did because it's been very fun writing it.
So when you're looking at creating these books, do you actually have an outline or are you just writing as they come? What is your writing process?
Originally, I have, and I still do. When I start a story, I'll write a story outline that I plan to follow. By the end, it's usually about 25% adherence, and the rest of it's just in the moment. So I kind of start with a general outline where I want to go. Most of the time, I kind of end up where I intended to go, but I didn't take the same path. I took a winding path.
So your
But
routes are a little different.
yes, yeah. It started out as a very specific procedure. It didn't end that way though. Now I'm kind of going at it. I still have the basic construction of what I want to do, and then I just follow wherever the story takes me. It takes a life of its own.
I like it. I'm glad that you're embracing it and then you're just running with it. How long is it taking you to create each book?
Roughly, now these last three I'm writing, I'm taking a lot more time with because there's a lot more I've got to fit together. When you write a story, of course, when you first begin, it's all brand new. So you can just kind of go wherever you want. There's really no worrying about what you've contradicted yourself earlier. But the more you write, and especially when you go back and try to fit it into stuff that's already chronologically written, you've got to be careful not to conflict with something you've already written before. So, but if you take an average of all of them, it's been about probably about 2 months a book, thereabouts.
That is pretty fast. I am pretty impressed.
Because of my past history with writing where I lose interest, I have to stay on it while I have the interest, you see. So, but luckily I've stayed interested with this one. So that's why it's been one book after another after another. So it's worked out well.
You know yourself well enough to understand that if you put it aside for too long, you're gonna get distracted with something else. You're like,
Yeah,
"I'm in
exactly.
this."
Yeah. And then I'll probably won't come back to it. And then I'll feel bad because I had a great story and I never finished it.
I am glad you have committed and stuck with the flow. What have you learned in this process that you're kind of surprised about, especially because now you have a full series going?
The biggest thing is I gotta have patience.
Okay.
Especially with the publishing, so the business side of it, I guess. I figured out quickly I have to hire an editor. I feel like I do a pretty good job on my own, but I need an editor. I think most people probably need an editor. But I found Andrea Flores as my editor. Her and I have really, really done a lot of good collaboration on this story. And then I realized shortly after that, if I plan to sell these things, I'm going to need to find someone who knows how to do that because it's not me. So I had to hire HR firm and get some help with the publishing side. But it's been your question, of course, was what did I learn? The biggest thing was patience. I need to learn things don't happen overnight, and I need to let them kind of take place the way they're supposed to.
Letting things percolate is very, very hard.
It is, especially when, like I say, I know my attention span, so I get anxious. But so far, going well. I'm enjoying it.
Oh, that's even better that you're enjoying it. As you're looking at your process and you continue to create this, what is the most fun you had? Like, what is your favorite part of the process?
That's definitely just the writing, I think. A lot of it was, well, getting feedback from readers, of course. I mean, good or bad, I love hearing what they think about it. I mean, I obviously no story is going to appeal to everybody, and somebody is not going to like it, while others will. But I just enjoy the feedback. I like to hear this was good, or the fan theories. This part here, what did you mean by this? And I'll use something I didn't write as an example. Robert Frost, his poem, Miles to Go Before I Sleep, Miles to Go Before I Sleep. There are whole papers written about what he meant. And people dive in and try to invent all these interesting thoughts of where he was trying to go with this statement. And I read somewhere that I guess he finally put it to bed and he said, I meant he had a long way to go before he went to bed that night. But everyone tries to make some. So in my book, to kind of encourage this debate about things. I do leave some things vague. I don't answer every question in the book. I kind of leave it up to the reader to decide what it means or what was supposed to be going on right there. So it's just fun to hear that stuff and see how close what I was thinking was what other people would think when they read it.
I always find it interesting because once our books are done, they take a life of their own, and people are going to take ownership of them. So their interpretation, that's their universe. It doesn't matter what we wrote. They're going to love it for that. So that's always exciting that you're giving them that extra leverage to go forth.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Have you thought about anything else to write, or are you still consuming this project? I mean, anything else been percolating besides this series?
I've had a few things, but I feel like I'm not done with this yet. But yeah, I have some rough outlines of some other stories that I was thinking about. But this one, I'm not done with this one yet. Once I get this one burned out of my system, then I'll move on.
I'm glad that you understand that if you switch gears, you're probably not going to come back to this one. So it's exciting to see you this focused. You're like, nope, I'm sticking to this.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
What advice would you give an up and coming author who's trying to get all of this together, has this idea burning in them?
I guess the biggest thing would be one, have patience. That's the biggest one for me. Have patience, but also when you're writing, don't put solid expectations in place first, I guess. Kind of like we were talking about the story map versus just writing it as you go. If you're the type of person that puts these very strict, stringent guideposts up where you have to be here on Wednesday and you have to be here on Thursday, writing's going to be kind of tough for you because that's not, at least in my experience, that's not how writing works. It, you kind of just got to place the beginning point and place the ending point, and the path in between could be a straight line, but not likely. It's going to be all over the map, and you're just going to have to hang on for a ride and see where it goes. And if it does start going off what you perceive as the path, don't panic and start, as I like to say, select all and delete and start over. Follow it, see where it goes. I mean, you might be shocked where it takes you. You know, at first you might be concerned you're going off a cliff, but you end up going down a nice path to another place. So it's kind of one of those things where you have to almost put faith in the story itself and follow it where it goes.
I love the way you put it, and I think readers and listeners will kind of comprehend that because I think we're very much quick to jump the gun and be like, "Oh, this is not working. Let me just delete it." So I'm glad that you told them don't delete it. Just follow those paths.
Mhm.
As you're going on this writing journey, what are you more excited to see coming up for you? Are you getting ready to do any events live? Are you getting to see people? What does your next year look like for you in terms of your career?
I think the most immediate event that's coming up that I'm really looking forward to is the official launch of the books, the first 3 books on September 24th. I'm gonna tell you a little story that's a little embarrassing about me. The reason the official launch of all 3 books is on September 24th instead of the first book is because I tried to launch the first 2 myself with no help, and it went very unwell. So now the 3rd book is coming up, and I have Amy at Abundantly Social helping me. Well, actually, she is launching the book. She's my godsend for the marketing side. She has all the benefits and all from Amazon to launch the book because I squandered the first 2, to be honest. So now she's got 3. So we're going to use it instead of theoretically as a launch of book 3, it's the launch of the series because I tried to launch the first 2 myself. So I kind of caused my own issue there, but we're going to fix it now. It's going to be a good thing.
The good news is it can be fixed. So it's not something completely lost. And you learn a lot of stuff. So it's all
Right.
good.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
nothing is wasted. You just have more material to write about.
That's right.
So books are getting relaunched. You got books 1, 2, and 3 for everybody listening. That's huge. Are they all coming out on the same date?
They're all available now. 1 and 2 are on Amazon now. That's Runes of the Dokkrsdottir and Runes of Renewal is the name of the first 2 books. Runes of Destiny is the 3rd one. It's available as pre-order now, but it hasn't been officially released yet. That'll be on the September 24th date. Runes of Revenge is after that. I don't know the dates on these yet. These are future books. They're written and they're ready to go. We just haven't worked out when we're going to release them yet. But book 4 is Runes of Revenge. Book 5 is Rune of Whispers. And 6, 7, and 8 are in development now, but they'll be Runes of Spirits, Runes of Building, and I haven't named the last one yet. That's what I'm writing now, but I haven't named it yet.
Ooh, that is exciting. You're getting all sorts of fun things going on, which I appreciate. So tell us, dear, where can our listeners find you and where they can learn more about the books?
I think the hub spot that I kind of created was the website thalsparr.com. So it's THALSPARR.com. And that'll kind of direct you to where on Amazon the books are. That will lead you to the social media sites and things like that.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. So, dear, before you leave us, are you ready for the lightning round?
Sure, let's do it.
Easy peasy. Don't think too hard about this. Let's see. Sweet or sour?
Sweet.
Okay. Knight or prince?
Night.
Great. Hotel or camping?
Camping. Absolutely.
Cats or dogs?
Cats. I think cats.
Okay. Here's a little different. Let's see how you do with this one. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Perfect memory.
Ooh,
Photographic memory. That would be all I would need.
that is impressive. That's a good one. I need to remember that. Dear,
Perfect memory.
I know I'm saying I need to remember, so you can tell. Dear, do you have any closing remarks for us?
No, just I enjoyed being here. And it's fun talking about this stuff, and I hope people enjoy it as much as I do.
It has been truly a pleasure. So much fun having you. Congratulations on this series. I am excited for you. So, this is huge. And to our listeners, go ahead, check out the series, check out the books. The website is on the comments, so you can go ahead and check it out now. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. We want to hear from you again. Bye, everyone.